Kevin Halderman, welcome to the studio.
Hey, appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, so we were just chatting here as I do during the breaks and everything. I'm always having such a chat with the guests. I almost forget I'm doing a show. But we were talking about the fact that now again, let's establish for anybody that doesn't know you by your name, establish your business and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've been a lake resident from life. I mean, I was born on the Osage River down in Tuscumbia, in the clinic up on the hill. My grandparents had resorts growing up here when we were kids. Graduated from Camden High School, 1990. So went to the Navy for a little bit. We've had several different jobs and everything, moved around. But about 5 years ago, we started getting into the cannabis industry. We saw, for our previous history, we came from transportation, so we're actually, investors in transportation in the medical marijuana industry right now. And we have our company's called Hemp Array. We've got 2 locations. We've got one here in Osage Beach, one up in Columbia.
I love the name, by the way. I got to smile whenever I hear the name. I got to smile.
My wife came up with it, and she drew our little figure. We call him Hempy. And everything.
I'm not familiar with Hempy.
Yeah, I'll show you a picture of him. We tried to transition into a safe type of cannabis. Nobody had really heard of even CBD down here at the lake at all. So we were one of the first stores to bring products into the area. We worked real hard to bring a high quality product into the area too, not just fly-by-night companies. We've done a lot of research.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. We know that. Everywhere. There's a lot. It's almost like buying, nutritional supplements. They say there's CBD in it, and you want this because it's got CBD in it. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discrepancies. There's a lot of misinformation on both sides of what cannabinoids can help you with. I mean, there's 114 different cannabinoids in this cannabis plant that interact with our body. And, most of the people know 1 or 2 of them, meaning either like a Delta-9 THC, which would be what's in marijuana, or CBD, which is more primarily in a hemp plant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, so again, as we've been discussing, and I've been promoting before you got here. Now, so you are in that line, but by the same token, go figure, of all people, you're not necessarily convinced that Amendment 3 is a good thing to vote yes on. So make your case for that. I know, we've already discussed, spoiler alert, I do know that a lot of it has to do with the very same thing that I was just telling Kevin I'm familiar with from back east. In Maryland, they held up. They were going to pass it legislatively, and they held up because they said, the bill's written wrong. The bill is a piece of garbage. And in the end, at the last minute, they pulled the bill last session. So it's expected to pass this time around again. They're expected to. We'll see what happens. But again, it was about all the other things, and it was the way the bill was written. And so make your case for why Missouri's Amendment 3 is not something that you think we should vote yes on.
So let me start this off by saying I am pro-legalization. I think the war on drugs has really, really hurt a lot of inner cities. Either way, you have to look at how we've removed black men from their families and put them in prison. And three-strike rules were part of that problem. So we do need some education on this. We do need to change some of this. I don't feel that cannabis is nearly as bad as alcohol, and alcohol is sold on every corner. I mean, alcohol has devastated communities also.
And here in Missouri, I moved to Missouri, and I can't get over the fact that they sell alcohol, and nothing against it. Yeah. It's just the way Missouri does business. But I mean, in Maryland or any place I've lived back east, you got to go to a liquor store to buy liquor. Here, you can, I think everything but a church can sell liquor. I guess if a church wanted to sell liquor, they could probably sell liquor. But convenience stores and supermarkets and hardware stores, I can't get over it.
Yeah, we're a fairly free market society in Missouri. We really do value freedom in Missouri. We value lack of restraint. I mean, we're some of the most unrestricted laws across the country if you really look at Missouri as a whole. I wish more businesses would come to Missouri. I mean, I think we've got a good platform. We're in the middle of the country. We've got some good tax breaks for different organizations, especially like trucking and everything like that. That's why you see so many like industries like Prime and Schneider's and all of these with the big industries down in Springfield, because they've set up tax breaks into the system for them. So, moving forward with this, like I said, Amendment 3 just has 38 pages, first of all. So we're not talking about a legislative bill. We're talking about a constitutional amendment. And so when you start talking about amendments, that becomes the foundation for law to move forward. And you can see how through courts and the Supreme Court and everything else across the country, we've fractured freedom of speech. We've fractured the Second Amendment. We've fractured the Fourth Amendment. All of these amendments really take hits. And those are very short clauses that have been fractured. I mean, the Second Amendment is very, very small, not 38 pages.
Yeah, right.
And so this becomes law, and this becomes the law of the land. So that's a giant issue. If you would have approached me and said, hey, we're going to legalize cannabis and we're going to let the legislative body set that up, probably would have been a different conversation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's it's the case of if you don't know what you're voting on. I mean, it's like unintended consequences. And I've had a few people in here. I'll mention one of them. Les Larson, for instance, is the Camden County Republican club president, and he said pretty much the same thing. He said, we're talking about weighing in on a constitutional amendment, which he said, once you do it, it's not that easy to undo. It's not just like a piece of legislation where you might be able to go, carry pitchforks and torches to the State House and, convince people to turn it back again that easily. It's going to take a whole nother process, and by that time, it's already in the fix.
I mean, you can pretty much assume that this document will be in place for at least 150 years.
Oh, my, yeah. Well, that shows the importance. As we go along, if when the phone rings, it's good to take the call. So let's see what's going on here. Hi there, you're on the air on KRMS.
Hey, good morning. I'm listening with incredulity when I hear a man say cannabis has removed black men from their families. Oh, no. Let's wait a minute. The black man removed himself from his family by committing a felony. That's A, okay? B, let's talk about what happens in 20 years when all these dope smokers have cancer and no money, and we have to pay for their cancer surgery at the University of Missouri with our tax dollars. Thanks, but no thanks.
Okay, and thank you for your call. We're on a break here at KRMS. Welcome back to Morning Magazine on this Thursday morning. Oh, the conversations that go on when the microphones are off, right, Kevin?
Yeah, they're great. You have to just smile. I mean, you really do.
I'm glad you feel that way. Absolutely.
I mean, I've got CBD in my life, so I smile every day.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I want to party with you. But anyway, so listen, now let's get serious here. We're talking about hype. Oh, by the way, I'm Chris Barnum. He's Kevin Halderman, and we are talking about Amendment 3 on the November ballot. And again, getting serious here. It is, on many levels, it is a controversial decision to make. To some folks, maybe they don't realize that. Some folks, as we were just discussing, think it's just like, hey, should we legalize recreational pot? Which I always think that term is funny, recreational pot. It makes it sound like it's really, it's kind of like, well, I don't exercise a lot, but I smoke recreational pot. But anyway, it's not as simple as that. And Kevin is in the business of selling hemp-based products and medicinal cannabis, and yet he's not happy with this particular amendment and the way it's written. As he has reminded us, it's 38 pages in length, and it has some long-lasting implications. And we're going to get back to the discussion. And again, if you want to weigh in on this issue or ask any questions of Kevin, 573-302-7000 is your line here to Morning Magazine. But Kevin, let's pick back up on what we were talking about. This is a very complicated, it's not just like a, hey, yes or no kind of a thing.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
So one of the key phrases that's being tossed around in this document is the lottery system. So they're potentially targeting people, and there's some qualifications to be qualified to actually even be accepted in for this lottery system. The person that actually is going to choose who gets to be accepted into that program is called the Chief Equity Officer, the new CEO of the state.
Right. We've heard about that. That was a big question. Even I referred to Les Larson earlier when he was in here and he was voicing his opinion on the thing. You know, he brought up the fact, he said, there's something about a chief equity. What the heck is that? I was like, well, if a guy like Les Larson is unclear on what the equity officer is, I guess we should all be a little bit like, what's this person going to do?
Well, I think their directives are pretty clear. It's all spelled out in the amendment.
Well, then elucidate.
So if you go through on page 24 of the amendment, it actually talks about how this person's going to be developed, who's choosing this person. So the Chief Equity Officer is going to be selected by someone in the Department of Health and Senior Services. That sounds great. You know, they've done a pretty decent job on the medical program. I'm not going to say it's great. They've had a lot of hurdles, COVID issues, all these other things, supply chain issues. Could have they approved? Probably. I mean, everyone thinks they could probably done better. But at the end of the day, the state still had over 800 lawsuits against it.
Really?
Yeah. For
how they did it?
For denials of licensing on the medical program. So we spent millions of dollars just trying to get through that problem also. And a lot of those cases have just been shoved down, and they've never been to court yet. So I think currently, there's still almost 500 open suits against the state.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, probably could have approved a few things and everything. But the Chief Equity Officer, it actually talks about what their job is. And so when you hear legal speak, the term shall is a mandate. It's not in a suggestion. You know, you shall do something. No, that's a mandated order that's put into the Constitution. So one of the first jobs that they're going to be responsible for creating and doing, the Chief Equity Officer shall assist with the development and implementation of programs to inform the public of the opportunities available to the people who meet the criteria set forth in this subsection. I don't see anything about cannabis in that. There's nothing that says anything about marijuana in that at all. So if I'm going to read this and I'm going to fracture this document apart like I know the Constitution will be, they're going to develop an implementation of programming. It's black and white. It's right there. It's spelled out. That's the first one. The second job, the Chief Equity Officer shall establish public educational programming. Again, doesn't say anything at all about marijuana or containing to cannabis or anything. So I'm going to suggest that's probably like K through 12 programming.
Really?
Yeah, we really do believe that.
Interesting. See, I'm just being honest. You know, my mind. That's not where my mind would have gone first. But I want to hear. Yeah, I want to hear more.
The third job we think that they'll have, the Chief Equity Officer shall establish public targeted assistance programming dedicated to providing communities that have been impacted by marijuana prohibition with dealing with information dealing with the licensing process. Again, these public targeted technical assistance programmings are not really clear if it's a cannabis program or some other type of program. The fourth job, the Chief Equity Officer shall inform individuals of the support and resources that the office can provide individuals and entities now interested in participating in activities licensed under this article. None of these really contain anything about cannabis. Nothing contains about marijuana. Everyone's assuming, there's a lot of assumptions that...
In other words, what you're saying is by being so vague, it's still setting precedents for things that are not even related to the, you know, what people think the issue is.
Correct. 100%.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This leads can't think of the word I'm trying to think of. People can interpret it in many different forms. Public educational programming of what? Does that mean for you on the radio? I mean, you know, are we going to have to redefine public educational programming for the radio? Is it just for schooling? It's an educational program. I don't know what it's tied to. We would assume it's marijuana, but that's not at all what that document says.
So in other words, if they're in, let's just say in the best case scenario in terms of everybody singing Kumbaya, and this was meant, this was the way they should have written it. They should have spelled it out more specifically, and the fact that it's not spelled out specifically makes you kind of wonder about what's really why they wrote it that way. Right?
Definitely open towards interpretation.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're talking to Kevin Halderman of Hemp Hemp Hooray about the upcoming decision that everybody's going to be making when it comes to Amendment 3 on the November ballot. We're going to keep him over for another segment here on Morning Magazine. If you've got a question of Kevin, by all means, give us a call at 573-302-7000. That's 302-7000. And we've got about a minute left in this segment here, so I don't want to get into anything that's going to obviously take a longer answer, but tell me anything else that we can wrap up quick about what folks should know about this. You just read a few clauses, a few provisions that people might not be aware of. What else on that 38-page piece of legislation or piece of constitutional amendment proposal are you concerned about?
It doesn't ever say anything about citizen or resident. It does say person. So the difference between those in a legal speak, a person is a human being considered of capability of having rights and being charged with duties. That's not the same as a citizen or a resident. That's something to think on going to the break.
Yeah. Wow. You've blown my mind. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to go there. I'm thinking of a line from Animal House right now that is just I'm not going to use. Anyway, I hope you'll stay with us here on Morning Magazine. We'll continue to talk about Amendment 3 on the November ballot, so do stay with us. I'm Chris Barnum. He's Kevin Halderman, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Morning Magazine on a Thursday here at KRMS. I'm Chris Barnum. We've got 35 minutes past the hour. And 69 degrees in Osage Beach under some nice sunshine. And we're hanging out with Kevin Halderman of Hemp Hemp Hooray, a guy who's kind of in the business, but by the same token, not real thrilled with the way Amendment 3 has been written. That's the amendment that you'll face on the November ballot. It's not as easy as yes or no. Do you want to, should we legalize pot? Yes, no. Well, there's a lot. It's 38. Go figure. When you told me it was 38 pages there, Kevin, I was like, wow, well, why do you need 38 pages to decide whether we're going to legalize pot for recreational use? But we've been talking about the various things that Kevin is particularly concerned about. And during the break, we were just talking about, I said, this is the opposite of the sports gambling issue where, Missouri is in the middle of a bunch of states that have legalized it, and everybody's going, come on, man, we ought to get in on that deal. But around, this is not an area that's famous for legalizing recreational marijuana, is it?
No, not at all.
I guess that was a rhetorical.
You can look at
a rhetorical question, wasn't it? Yeah, because as I always say, I'm a recovering Easterner, and I know back east, it's around. There's not that many places that haven't gone yes on that already. But here, this would be quite a kind of a thing if it was to pass.
Yeah, you can look at Oklahoma, for instance. We have states around us that are medical or recreational.
Okay, yeah.
So Oklahoma is actually a medical program, but they just opened their licensing up. Like if you had $7,000, you could be a full vertical, meaning you could be a grow, a manufacturer, or a dispensary. They allowed anyone to have a license. It was pay to play and open it up and go.
So why don't more states do it? Because I know that's been the hang up too. And when I keep talking about back east, Maryland is lawmakers there because they're not doing it by a budget or by a ballot measure. They're ultimately going to do it, and they're expected to do it this year. They were expected to do it last session. They're going to do it legislatively. But one of the things that we're talking about is all the, trying to figure out how to do it right with the businesses and making sure that, there's a lot of talk about making sure minority-owned businesses have a fair shake, and they don't want to get, I guess it's so funny to think, I've never heard the term used, but I guess we can. They used to talk about big tobacco. And I guess, these days you can talk about big marijuana because there are some big companies that end up being the ones behind what's sold in a lot of states. So I know that it's the way you do it and how you let the folks get in on the business that is a sticking point and often a huge point of contention.
Yeah, people don't really understand how big marijuana is, probably. Constellation Brands, I believe.
Because they're all stoned. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, or I just prefer to say uneducated,
Yes.
a little, on both sides, whether you use cannabis or not. Altria, I believe they're along the lines with the Kronos Group out of Canada.
Mm-hmm. And they changed their name. Didn't they used to be a tobacco? They were, I think, if it's who I'm thinking
Marlboro,
of. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Constellation Brands, they're with a company I think they spent $30 million also, something like that, to be into the Canada market. There's Canadian companies that are coming into the States and purchasing different types of companies up, smaller brands and everything else. A lot of these places are already off-sourcing cannabis grows. I know of 2 different companies that are in the country of Colombia right now, exporting hemp and marijuana back into Europe.
I think the United States should be marijuana independent, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to tell you, let's not outsource our marijuana. No, anyway, I'm sorry. I think one contract for one of these hemp contracts that went into Germany was about $5 million out of the country of Colombia. Wow.
I mean, and we're hung up in the United States. Our restrictions are actually tighter than what they are over in the UE. And so we can't even sell our hemp fiber and our products on the open market across the globe.
That's wild.
Yeah, we're more stringent than they are.
And I mean, and again, when we're talking about a question like actual, marijuana, you were talking about, folks that, they just think, pot is pot. But I mean, hemp, there's a lot of hemp products, and you sell hemp products that have nothing to do with getting stoned.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you're under tight restrictions. That's why when people talk about, especially with the midterms rolling up and everybody's talking about how one of the biggest issues, not only the economy, but number 2 is crime and everything. And yet it's like, they can be so strict about legislating and, writing laws about this and that, about selling, products of that sort and how you can do it and where you can do it and how much you can do it and who can do it. And yet, you might walk down the street and, get hit over the head and the guy goes free. But anyway, so it's again, we're really talking to the way this bill is written. So what else in that 38 pages of proposal here? Because when we go into the ballot, when we go to cast our ballot on November 8th, we are gonna see that little summary. And even what Kevin Halderman here of Hemp Hooray gave me as some ideas for our chat here. He's literally given me segments of concern from the amendment that is 38 pages. And even when he wanted to boil it down, I got 4 pages of stuff here. I haven't been able to read it, actually. We've had such a good time talking. But, what else do you want us to know about what's in there that could prove worrisome to some folks?
Well, I mean, this amendment affects the hemp industry also. So they're actually transitioning us from what we would consider federal law and oversight through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And now the law is going to be wrote up that we're actually regulated by Missouri state regulation. So that is a hurdle for us now. Changing stuff on a state level versus a federal level, gets a little tricky also. Especially when we're talking about me wanting to take a hemp fiber product and move it across the globe. Big challenges.
See, that's interesting. I mean, now I see what you're talking about. In other words, you're regulated about where you can sell your stuff because you happen to be in this state.
Correct.
See, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. And, they put some protectionism in for their own industry. One of the biggest things that I have a problem with is it talks about how the department, meaning Department of Health and Senior Services, that's who regulates the marijuana program, currently the medical marijuana program, and they will regulate the adult use program. They cannot restrict a product on the shelf solely for the THC content in it. Meaning, if I had a product that I wanted to bring to market through the industry and it was 100%, they can't tell me I can't do that. So we have no real safe consumer protections, I feel like that either, you know. I'm more cautious with saying cannabis should be used daily. I think marijuana does have toxicity issues. So if you're consuming marijuana daily, you're going to have to increase that usage because of those issues. And I think while it's not an addicting product, like I would consider an opioid or even alcohol in that form, it can be worrisome. I mean, and it can cost people a lot of money once they hit tolerance issues. I'd like to see more of a well-rounded product, more cannabinoids infused into it. Meaning, in a cannabinoid, like I said, so many of them, we don't even have the research on them to how they'll affect our body. We have what's called an endocannabinoid system, in each one of these cannabinoids affects how our body reacts to that through that system. So, yeah, that protectionism is pretty bad. There's also in the current amendment right now for the medical use, they actually have it wrote in that no elected official shall indirectly or directly interfere with the department's obligation and activities under this section. So I know in the spring, the House tried to pass a resolution to change some funding for DHSS. They were actually trying to open up.
Sorry about that. That's me. Continue.
They were actually trying to open up and force more dispensaries and more businesses to be opened through the law. And the people in power actually stepped up and said, you can't do this. It says it right here. You can't interfere with how we're running this program. This is at our discretion. So the legislative body is already out of medical cannabis. There's nothing that they can even do.
Well, and that's exactly that. That speaks to what I told you that folks like Les Larson were telling us. And I've heard it about some of the other things on the ballot. It doesn't sound like that National Guard question should be controversial, but there are people that go, well, pro or con. You make this a constitutional amendment, and once it's the die is cast. It's not like you can lobby Jeff City to turn things around or make adjustments in it. It is what it is, which is why these amendments on the ballot and the voters. It's nice that the voters have the power to weigh in on certain things. But yeah, this is one of those kind of things where it's perfectly understandable that people really understand before they cast a vote on either side.
Yeah, I mean, legal speak is very difficult to understand also. I mean, words do not mean the same in a legal dictionary as they do in common speech. And so a lot of people get confused with that and because they don't understand it and they misinterpret things a lot.
That's how lawyers get you.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
It is. Listen, I have spent a lot of money in attorneys over the last my lifetime through our other businesses, and they can be very valuable, and hopefully they do know a lot more than
because they speak that
person.
language. Yeah. That's what it is, actually. Yeah. It's like getting an interpreter.
Yeah. So with this new amendment also, by the way, they put another clause. So we have the basic clause that says no elected official can do anything to interfere with how this is ran. So now what they're actually saying also is the chief equity officer may only be removed for cause, and the department shall not interfere with the officer's lawful activities under this section.
Well, that's a nice job if you can get it.
So I'm going to question again the department, meaning DHSS, now that they're creating this position, they're putting this person in power, and now they can
Freudian slip there, I think.
Yeah. Now they cannot interfere with how that person is actually doing anything.
Wow.
Either. So it's a double layer of protection for them.
Yeah. Like I say, nice work if you can get it. We got lines flashing. You mind taking a call or two?
Sure, we'll try.
Let's see what happens. We work without a net. Hi, you're on the air on KRMS. Good morning.
Hi, I'm glad to hear your program this morning. I had already decided to vote no on this issue, mostly because of just the size of it. It's just ridiculous to have that big amendment or to the Constitution and the Constitution. That's totally unreadable.
38 pages. You got to be a little suspicious of 38 pages.
Yeah, and the only the only advertising I've seen on TV is in favor of it, to vote yes. Something about supporting the police, providing health care for veterans, and reducing punishment for offenders. And that's it, and I've never seen anything on TV to say vote no. I'm afraid it's going to pass.
Well, I'll be honest with you. From the journalist's point of view, we've had a lot of stories. There have been very few organizations that are coming. I think the organizations that are hoping to vote yes are just figuring, well, people that want to smoke pot are going to vote yes because they're not spending any money on it. The one organization that did I think one in particular, they got in trouble because they ran in the process of running an ad, they put the Missouri State Highway Patrol logo in the ad, and were told they had to take it out. So they got kind of egg on their face. But I know that a lot of organizations of law enforcement officials and religious groups and some state officials have all come out publicly. The state Republican committee, I think even the Democrat, both sides of the aisle, the organized groups, they've all been sending out press releases urging that people vote no.
So, if I can interrupt here,
Yeah.
This amendment raised about $7 million to go on the ballot. And the no people, while there are some people in the industry that actually say no, we don't have $7 million.
Yeah.
And to get on the back of what he was saying about the police association, actually the Missouri Police Chiefs Association actually came out with a statement on November 1st denouncing it. Mm-hmm. They do think that it's misadvertising. There's nothing in this amendment that actually shows how any money is going to go to police enforcement or law enforcement at all. And I've got the draft of that letter right here from the Missouri Police Chiefs Association.
Yeah. And caller, are you still there, caller?
Yes, I am.
If you have a follow-up, before I don't want to let you go without giving you a chance to follow up.
Well, it's just that it's so absurd to put this in the Constitution, and it was done intentionally, I guess, so that it cannot be changed. There's no way to change it once it gets in there.
Okay. Guess what? I got to go to a break immediately, sir, but thank you for calling KRMS, and call again soon. And welcome back to Morning Magazine on a Thursday morning. I'm Chris Barnum. We've got 50, what do we got? No, what am I talking? We got 69 degrees in Osage Beach under sunny skies. We've been talking about Amendment 3, and from the perspective of Kevin Halderman of Hemp Hooray, a guy that you might, on the face of it, think that he'd say, yeah, vote yes on it. He's not very happy about the way this thing is written. And if you've got a question for Kevin, we still got a couple of minutes left in the show. I do have somebody on the line, or I did. Let's see if they're still there. Hello there. You're on the air on KRMS.
Is that me?
That's you.
Okay. I heard somewhere, and I've already decided to vote no, but I heard somewhere, do you want your rights to buy a gun or do you want recreational marijuana? I'll just hang up and wait for an answer. Bye-bye.
Well, okay. Well, wait. Well, maybe Kevin knows what you're talking about. I'm not clear on what you're asking.
So I can handle this.
So Kevin knows. Okay, very good. Thank you, caller. And you can listen off air, but I appreciate that.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that gun rights are illegal with cannabis, and that's not the truth.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm slow. I didn't get it. Yeah, no.
So
explain.
what actually happens is if you go in and you go to a legal business to buy a weapon. Mm-hmm. So Missouri's a little different. We have more constitutional gun rights. So if I want to make a private transaction, that's between me and whoever I want to do anything with. But if you go into a facility and actually have to buy a weapon from a dealer, you have to do the NICS background check. Mm-hmm. And there's a specific cause or clause in that you actually have to admit, do you use recreational or medical cannabis or marijuana? And so by default, a lot of states have automatically intertwined that statement into your medical card and stuff. And so a lot of people have been refused to be able to purchase weapons through that because of that clause. And that was a federal change when everybody started to bring recreational and medical programs onto the market.
I'm surprised at that, and Missouri didn't stand up against that kind of a thing. I'm very surprised.
Well,
I mean, Eric
Federal
Schmidt's
laws
been suing. It's been suing the administration, the current administration, 25 times in 2 years. So I would have thought that wouldn't have gotten by Missouri.
Well, it's a federal deal. It's not a state
Yeah.
deal. So you're doing the FBI background check through the federal law.
Yeah, but I mean, but there's a lot of states that, it surprises me that they can do that. Wow. Well, you keep telling me things I didn't know there, Kevin. Hey, listen, we're coming up on the end of the show, so make your case, make your final case for why you think folks should think twice before voting yes on Amendment 3.
First of all, I'd like to tell a small group of people that I do know that are against this. Governor Parsons has came out against it. The Secretary of State has come against it. Tashara Jones, she's the mayor of St. Louis, has came out against it. The mayor of Kansas City has came out against it. The NAACP is fractured across the state. 2 of the branches have said no. 1 of the branches has said yes. The independent
That's
party,
interesting that they're not on the same page, especially that organization.
It's about the first time in the state that they fractured.
Wow.
On a cause. We've got the Independent Party, the Republican Party. I can't even tell you how many representatives and senators I've talked to in the last 3 months that are opposed to this. They really want to see this go through the legislative body also. And I think right now we're in a dead heat. I don't think it's going to pass. I keep telling everybody that. So let's just stick with that thought at the end.
Well, it's interesting, with not a ton of contested races on the ballot, Kevin, this gives me a chance to remind folks, on election night, we're going to have expanded news. You're still going to hear your Mark Levin and regularly scheduled programs, but we're going to be following and tracking the numbers as they come in. And it will be very interesting to see how this in particular ends up faring. Thank you, Kevin Halderman, for joining us on Morning Magazine on KRMS.